We'll see how that shakes out. Why? Just why? I could have read more about these characters and their situation. Hi, I'm Sack Marionette, doing business as Bargain Counter Argument, and I'm a middle-aged lady in a tiara counting down to Valentine's Day. And I did not have a whole lot of sleep last night. I slept for about 6 hours, and when I first woke up, I felt fine. I felt pretty energetic. And then I went downstairs and had breakfast and a cup of coffee, and paradoxically, I started feeling rather sleepy. That'll happen sometimes. Yesterday wasn't really a lot. I did do the errands and stuff, but Princess Hobblefoot, I have like tendonitis in my left foot, and she's kind of bothering me today because yesterday I didn't spend a lot of time out, but there was like this kind of strolling through grocery stores and so on. So, that can be a little bit much when you have a sore foot. So I was going to go up to the attic today and get some stuff, but I decided not to do that. I'm just going to be having a rest day. I might have more of a rest day than I anticipated, but before I go back to bed and maybe fall asleep, maybe not, I thought I'd at least introduce today's vlog. We have Meet Cute, of course. And today's story, I like this design. I have these cherries. I like cherries as a fruit and as a design element. So there we go, day 4. And let's see who the author is and what the title of the story is. We have, it's called Click, and it is by Catherine McGee. It's about 18 pages long, 19 pages long. So that I will read after I record this clip and then update you in the next clip. The book today, this is why I wanted to go up to the attic, is because it is a Harlequin super romance. And it's probably the longest book on my list of potentials for this whole project, because Harlequin super romance, I think this is like probably the categories that are the longest, I think. I'm not sure. This is Cloud Over Paradise by Abra Taylor, and this is number 5 in the line. And I was looking on FictionDB at the suggestion of Sarah of reading category romance, link in the description. She's also doing a countdown to Valentine's Day, and that gives you information about series, various kinds of series. And apparently the first 2 super romances, and I have at least one of them, I might have both of them. The first one was also by Abra Taylor, and I think it was called End of Innocence. Those came out kind of almost separately in, I believe, 1980, I want to say. And then they started with the third book. They started publishing 1 a month, and then they moved up to 4 a month and so on. Yeah, because this was July of 1981. And this is 380 pages long. And at some point, the super romances got shorter. And I have a lot of them upstairs in the attic. And I was going to get them and I was going to hold them up on camera. And that was creating too much friction for the vlog. Because I was like, I'm tired. I want to have a nice resting and nesting kind of day. So I kind of wanted to just settle in and read this nice long book that takes place in Tahiti. And I chose this one rather than the first Harlequin super romance, because one time in around about 1986 or so, or maybe it might have been 1985, my aunt and uncle came to visit us. This is when we lived in Germany, as Americans abroad. We're not German. And they came to visit us, and my aunt had this book with her. And I was like, oh, that looks intriguing, but I didn't get a chance to read it, of course, because, she was reading it, and then they went to different places, and so, but anyway. So that's why I picked this one, because I saw it in a lot of Harlequin super romances on eBay, and I got the whole lot, not just for this book, but, it was part of it. And so that's what I'm going to read today, and here is the summary. Cloud Over Paradise. Marisa walked right into a velvet trap. Ooh, that's my favorite kind. It was in Tahiti airport that Marisa began to have doubts. That's when she found that Antoine de Vigny had tricked her. Ooh. Well, with a name like Antoine de Vigny, he probably thinks he can get away with that kind of nonsense. Her furious protests were brushed aside. Of course they were. It's 1981 and a romance. Marisa couldn't deny that she'd jumped at the job because she thought it seemed easy because she needed the money, don't we all? She had agreed to a temporary engagement, but no way would she have come 4,000 miles to marry a total stranger. Exactly, Antoine said smoothly. I didn't think you would, yet I'm sure you'll forgive me when I explain. Well, he's going to have to explain and whine and dine and so on. I wonder if there's a child involved. That's how they get you. The Harlequin Super Romance covers have these lovely wraparounds. Well, this isn't exactly... I don't think that's a wraparound. I think those are supposed to be two... Let's see if I can get this so that there's no glare. I think these are supposed to be two separate vignettes. Some of them have... I think most of them have those kinds of covers where it is kind of a wraparound, but kind of also two different vignettes. I did a whole live stream, midweek motivation live stream with sprints and so on, where I hauled the super romances that I got. I'll see if I can find it and provide a link in the description in case you want to see me showing off a lot of these covers, because they are very nice. So anyway, so the plan is to read that at some point today, maybe in stages, maybe between naps. We'll see how that shakes out. Also, I wanted to share with you a link in the description and a channel, Kristen Lee, the never-ending TBR in Kristen's Corner. She is also reading Meet Cute, and the way she's doing it is she's posting a short every day, kind of talking about the story and how she feels about it. So I will put a link for that in the description, and I would highly encourage you to check her out, both her shorts and her stuff in general. She's fun. So, yeah, that's it for now. And, you know, we'll see how today goes. I don't think I gave a timestamp or an earworm in that first clip. I didn't give an earworm for the simple reason that there wasn't one. I didn't wake up with anything playing in my mind this morning, so my brain did not DJ my morning experience. Rude. Anyway, it is now almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I did take quite the nap. And somewhere along the line, this book. Well, Antoine is an unappealing jackwagon. And why? Just why? He like asks her to marry him. He makes it clear that he's hiring her for a job to be his pretend fiance. And then when she gets there, like it says on the back of the book, he's like, yes, actually, you're going to be my pretend wife. And I didn't tell you that because if I had told you that, you wouldn't have agreed. Okay, dude. And then she gets to, he lives on an island not too far from the main island of Tahiti. And they get there, and one of his friends, who knows that this is a marriage of convenience, says something to her about how she's getting married that day, and she gets this look on his face, and the guy is like, "Oh, you didn't know that?" And she says, "No, I didn't." And he says, "Well, you'll find that he doesn't tell people things unless he thinks they have a need to know." And clearly he's not a very, he means Antoine, and clearly Antoine is not a very good judge of who needs to know of what information. And it just goes on like that. And then when she, so she's like, okay, I guess so. She's like, I think I want to go home now. I want to go back to, she's from California. She's been studying, actually, I think she was originally from Maine. Her sister lives in California, and she's been studying at the Sorbonne. And she's like, I want to go back to Paris because this is nonsense. And he's like, oh, it turns out that when your brother-in-law died, that's how he knows her, is that her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, worked for him and died unexpectedly. And he says, well, when he died, he had brain cancer that was undiagnosed until too late. And so he says, well, he was behaving kind of forgetfully and erratic before he was diagnosed, and his insurance wasn't up to date. And he says, I was going to make up the difference to my employee or to my employee's widow, but if you're going to go away, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, she's like, that's blackmail. True. And he's like, well, only because you forced me to do it. There's a lot of only because you forced me into this, or only because, like, he wants to have sex with her, and he seems to resent that fact. And because the idea is that they're going to get married and then they're going to get an annulment. And it's kind of important that they not have sex if they want to get an annulment. And so he keeps like trying to have sex with her anyway, or starting to have sex with her and then backing off when he remembers that they're not supposed to do that. And it's very much like, why did you have to be so appealing? And she's like, why did you have to encourage me? I wasn't encouraging me. Well, the way you touched your tongue to your upper lip and the way you were, it's just gross, gross, gross. Anyway, so she meets, the reason he needs to get married is his dad told him he had to marry by the time he turned 35 or he wouldn't get this land that he loves or something. Anyway, it turns out that they had to get married that afternoon because it was his 35th birthday, and she tries to find out why his dad wants him to get married so badly. There is no child involved. I called it wrong. And he won't tell her. And at one point he decides that, oh, well, we should be friends. Because if we're friends, then I won't want to make love to you, which is a very strange assertion to make, a very strange mentality to have. Anyway, so he says that, and then she's asking him questions, and he says, if we're going to be friends, you can't be asking me personal questions. Okay, I don't think he knows what friendship is. I don't think he knows anything about interpersonal relationships at all. He just withholds information for no reason, and awful, awful, awful human being. So I read about a third of the book, and then I skipped ahead to the last 15-20 pages. I was like, let me see what the big love confession looks like, or if there's anything that's happened in those pages, that more than half the book that I'm skipping over. And I read the big love confession. It was not compelling at all. And also, you would think that by skipping over almost 2/3 of the book, that I would have not been able to pick up exactly what was happening and who they were talking about in the big love confession. But I did, because after he won't tell her anything at the start of the book, she goes and talks to his stepmother instead and finds out everything she needs to know, everything the reader needs to know. And when I skipped ahead to the end, there was no new information in there. There wasn't any reference to characters I hadn't encountered. There was no reference to any situation I wasn't already aware of. So I don't know what happened in here, except that it was totally irrelevant to the story, basically. The only thing that happened was apparently, like, if I had gone to like 40 pages before the end of the book, they would have had sex for the first time. That's the only thing that I missed with these two. I don't think I missed anything at all. In fact, it's probably for the best that I didn't read it. Anyway, so, and that's the other thing, is that if the idea of a Harlequin super romance, this is more than twice as long as a Harlequin Presents would have been, it should have more characters, more complications, more interesting stuff happen. I should not be able to skip to the end of the book and not have any trouble picking it up. So I'm not sure exactly what the need for a longer book was in this case. There weren't any, there weren't additional characters, there wasn't additional character growth, there wasn't additional anything to justify needing a longer book other than cash grab. Anywho, so yeah, not impressed, did not like it. Glad I skipped over almost all of it and didn't waste my time on it. Oh, basically, your basic early 1980s romance. They're not all like this. They don't have to be like this, and they weren't all like this, but this one was, so it made it your basic early 80s category romance, disappointing literary experience. What wasn't a disappointing literary experience was the story in Meet Cute, Click by Catherine McGee. It was a very fun story, and that one I actually wish that there had maybe been a little bit more, which is nice. It was... The story was complete in itself, but I could have read more about these characters and their situation, and I liked it a lot. So yeah, so Meet Cute good, Cloud Over Paradise bad, and I'm going to conclude because again I still feel tired. I wonder if I'm fighting something off, or maybe I'm just grouchy. When I read this story first, and I was like, oh, I feel a little more engaged with life. Now I'm just like, let's just go to sleep. That's not a keeper. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Or don't. I am not the boss of you. And I hope you have a good day or night.